From the information center of First Coast News, this is First Coast News at 6.
Speaking through the pain, the one message a woman has for the hit-and-run suspect who left her in this condition. Plus, tracking misinformation. The weather data JEA messed up that could impact how you understand your bills. Those stories coming up in just a second. Right now, though, an hour left on the primary clock as candidates try to grab every last-minute vote in the race for the White House. And Shannon and I are just looking through some information we just got in, preliminary exit poll results from ABC here in Florida. Something that stands out to me right now, 2/3 of the voters saying that they are satisfied with Romney as a GOP candidate. 3/4 favorable opinion of Romney, a bit more than 50% lower favorable opinion of Gingrich.
Like Jean, you said, we just got this in. We're reading it off the results here. Another couple items. 4 in 10 voters today said they chose their candidates a month before today's vote, and that's a lot more than we saw in South Carolina. One more note, 2/3 of Florida voters today said the debates made an important factor. So they do matter, and of course, I think one of the ones that mattered most is right here in Jacksonville. We've got a big team standing by, and we have asked all the members of our teams tonight, what is the one thing that surprised you most today? Veteran reporter Roger Weeder digging into the cost behind the votes. Jeff Marcoux with the Romney campaign in Tampa, and Caitlin Ross. Kate's been on the campaign trail for a while now all across Florida. So Kate, let's start with you. What is the one thing that most surprised you?
Well, Shannon, we're here live at the Orlando headquarters for Newt Gingrich, and they actually just dimmed the lights a little bit. Things are getting a little romantic in here, but they're definitely not on air. If you've been watching those commercials, they could not get nastier. Actually, some research was done showing 92% of the commercials so far have been negative. Now, that's a huge amount, but it's also a huge number of commercials. And what actually surprised me the most was I was speaking with another reporter here at the headquarters. She's from a Spanish language radio station. She said they were inundated with so many commercials, they actually had to apologize to viewers and put off some of their programming in order to fit all of the commercials in. So that should tell you just a little bit about how important Florida is to these candidates and how important it is for them to get their message out. Again, Newt Gingrich at a number of different polling sites speaking directly to voters today, trying to get in some last-minute jabs, some last-minute votes before the end of this primary. He says he's waiting till the end of the night. That's when all of the votes will be tabulated, and he's excited for those results. When asked what would happen if he lost big in Florida, he replied, "I'm not going to lose big here." So let's check out how the Romney campaign is doing. I'll turn it over to Jeff Marcoux, who's live in Tampa.
Hey there, Caitlin. Yeah, we are live at the Tampa Convention Center. It'd be hard to say the one thing that surprised me the most because so many things have surprised me on this trip. First of all, the schedule these guys keep, it's incredible trying to keep up with them. Also, their fans, their supporters, a lot of people here are calling him President Romney already. They're not worried about Newt Gingrich. They're worried about President Obama. But I think the biggest surprise for me, I've been asking, how does this guy get around? We're talking Mitt Romney here, Governor Mitt Romney. So follow me behind this magic curtain, and I'll share this surprise with you. And I had to ask about 5 people to figure out where this thing is. This is the bus. We're actually inside. I'm not sure if we're supposed to be right here, but we'll do it for now. This is the Mitt Romney bus. Look at this thing. I talked to the bus driver earlier. He cleaned the wheels even. Nice Armor All wheels. And this is the same bus that's taken Rick Perry around. A lot of political people have been on this bus. All right, so you know me, I asked to get on the bus. I said, we've got to get in to show you. And they said no. I asked another person, they said no. So the closest we can get to show you inside this bus is right here. See that curtain? Behind that curtain, that is where Mitt Romney sits and enjoys. He does not sleep on the bus. They made that very clear. He said, no, no, no. It's not a sleeping bus. This is a lounging bus. So he lounges back there. I talked to the driver. He said he'll be headed to Colorado after this, and he'll be waiting at the airport when Mitt Romney gets there. So there's the bus. We're headed back. We're waiting for Mitt Romney. Another 2 hours. He should be here at the Tampa Convention Center. Now we want to go live to Arlington, and my colleague Roger Weeder checking out Duval County voters. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Jeff, one thing I found interesting, we know the candidates have invested a lot of money in Florida in advertising to sway voters, but I kind of broke it down how much it costs taxpayers per ballot, and based on the projected turnout today, it's about $17 per vote. As you mentioned, I'm here in Arlington, a little slack in the action here now, but it was a busy day here earlier. About 800 people have voted so far, but I did talk to some Republican voters, and they repeatedly told me what they're disappointed about is the tone of the campaign.
do not like negative. I'd rather have their energy put into what they're going to do instead of trying to beat down the other candidate. Absolutely.
I think they ought to stick to the point, what we need done, instead of trying to down each other.
And what's up for grabs here by the numbers? 50 convention delegates. And talking about money, all the candidates and the super PACs have invested more than $24 million to sway voters. And talk about voter turnout, we're looking at about 40% here in Duval County. And again, this is Republican only, so we're looking at probably about 80,000 people likely will cast a vote here. And the early results, according to the elections office, the early and absentee information, we should get that shortly after the polls close at 7. Reporting live in Arlington, Roger Weeder, First Coast News.
The other two major candidates are watching things out west, Rick Santorum and Ron Paul. Santorum's in Las Vegas, campaigning near Denver earlier today. Ron Paul is in Colorado. A Fort Collins appearance earlier today. He didn't even mention Florida or any of his opponents. And he says the U.S. should focus on cutting federal spending. The Colorado caucuses are a week from today.
Now to those nasty ads. Which one did the most damage? We're asking you today on our website the choice between these two.
Own record, the judgment of his
So is it this nasty ad against Gingrich?
By an overwhelming vote, they found him guilty of ethics violations.
Or this nasty one against Romney about abortion?
Go along, one can go to a judge or justice to get that permission.
He said what? Keep voting on firstcoastnews.com. The results for you in just a bit. But first, to the pros. UNF political science professor Dr. Michael Bender. The anti-Gingrich ad, he says, you bet it's damaging.
Not only does this guy have ethics troubles, but it's Tom Brokaw. It's this well-respected individual who's been on the news for, a couple of decades now.
And something else to point out about that spot. I'm over here with Michael Muntz at the Dalton Agency. Something you were telling me about I hadn't thought of.
A man who brought down another.
This ad started airing on a Friday.
It was brilliant putting it out on a Friday.
NBC wanted it pulled.
But still, Monday and Tuesday morning, not only was it still running, but now all the news channels were talking about that specific ad, so it got even more airtime.
Also now, count how many edits are in this ad.
There was really only one at the very end, when a very matter-of-fact Mitt Romney said, "I approve this ad."
At Dalton, Muntz says these days to voters, no edits or few edits means more credibility. So do actual clips from the candidates. And Bender says the negative ads, they do work.
Ton of research out there that shows yes, they work, and in some cases they can also increase turnout and get more people interested in the election.
So even if people hate these ads,
yes,
they're working on your mind.
Absolutely.
What's a proof from history? 1964, Lyndon Johnson versus Barry Goldwater, close race. Then this ad.
It ran once.
Once?
Once. It's the most famous. It's one of the most. It's probably the most famous political ad, and it ran once, and that speaks to the power of free media.
It only had to run one time, one night, but the talk it churned up.
It painted Goldwater as this radical who was willing to use the bomb to blow up a 6-year-old kid.
A nasty ad, he says, one big reason LBJ won in a landslide.
So back to the vote on our website. Which was more damaging? So far, about 61% of you say the anti-Gingrich ad with the clip from Tom Brokaw, and about 38% say the anti-Romney ad on abortion. The poll is on firstcoastnews.com under top stories.
Is next. We are joined by our good friend, the Republican analyst Brian Graham with Dixie Strategies. How big a victory for Romney is required for Romney to say this really was the victory I needed?
Well, I think if Romney gets anywhere over 10 percentage points, it's a blowout in Florida. I think anywhere above 5 points is very, very good for him. Anything less than that shows some weakness.
All right, let's look at region by region. Who does what and where?
Look for Romney to do very well in Southwest, Southeast, in Central Florida, Orlando, and Tampa. Look for Gingrich to do better in Ocala, Gainesville, Jacksonville, and the Panhandle.
So, Brian, obviously, Romney way outspent everybody. I think, what, 4-1, 5-1, something like that. At least, right. And we don't really know what the final tally is going to be. So, if you break it down per vote that he'll get, obviously it's going to be a very impressive number. Can you ever spend too much? Is it ever spending too much if you win?
I think Governor Scott showed you that you can't spend too much money. in politics. Because the advertising, it does work, and the negative ads raise the negatives of your opponent, and the positive ads raise your name ID and your positives.
So as far as depleting any sort of resources going forward, that's not going to be a concern. This is only number 4, and we've got several more to go.
I don't think that's a big concern for Romney, because not only does he have his personal pocketbook, but he is very good at raising money, and he's raised more than any of the other Republican candidates.
And of course, it's a perpetual motion,
Correct.
money-making machine. The more you spend, the more you win, and the more money you make because of it. All right, thank you for being here. Now, why don't you get cozy? Because we'd like to have you back on for 11 o'clock, and that's still a few hours away. All right, we're going to watch the polls, Brian, too, and he'll be back here tonight at 11.
Plead through the pain, what a hit-and-run victim tells us just days after the crash. Plus, information outage. What could be wrong with the information that JEA gives you to understand your own bill?
And on cue, the clouds have thickened up, not producing yet, but they will. We're beginning to see an increase in moisture. We'll talk about when that moisture will finally produce at least some needed rain for the First Coast.